What was it like for you, though, this young boy? I realize there's a maturity beyond your years, you and your classmates, but as you saw the violence breaking out and as you lived through that day, what was that like for you as you realized the enormity of this occasion? This day didn't end up the way you had planned.
The first thing that I wanted to think about was, yes, by this time I hadn't received any formal education since March. Together with the other students, as young as we were. So for me, it was like the struggle continues because whatever I protested against passively in March, being locked in my schoolyard, has taken another turn, has taken another dimension, and the police are now around using violence. So it simply means that, in a sense, the struggle continues because the issue has not been resolved.
Yes. Was that an exciting realization for you in the face of the violence you were witnessing?
Not necessarily, because now you have to think about our struggle has now been hijacked by the Tsotsis at the end of the day, you know, because now they are taking advantage of the situation. And since they are taking advantage of the situation, you now become aware that this has taken another turn now. And as students, they don't represent us. They don't represent us. We know exactly what are the issues at play. So then there's another dimension. So what were the implications? The implications were that parents had to take leadership roles. That's when now you find the parents forming a committee of 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Tata Botlana.
And Winnie Mandela, and they had to take responsibility now because they had to stand up and say, not in the name of our kids would you say that these issues, these things should carry on, you know. So that's when now the parents came in a big way, and because then it was also obvious that the mortuaries at Baragwanath and everywhere else were full of students. And remember, it was not only about Soweto. It spread.
Yes.
It spread to other towns.
Yeah, Alex went up, and that was my first indication of what happened. But just for the purposes of commemorating June 16 on Kaya FM and looking at your book, I think there are a number of important things we've learned, and the most telling is that it was young 14, 15-year-olds from Phefeni Junior Secondary School who were involved in a lengthy protest. This wasn't a spontaneous thing. It had been building for a long time. That young girls were at the forefront of the struggle, and there was no organized political party, even in hiding underground or in exile, that played a role. It was you students as young kids that fomented this.
Yes. Look, at the end of the day, the Black Consciousness movement was not banned.
BC was around, of course.
Yes, it was operating above the ground. But as I said, we didn't need them to tell us that, you know, we are aware that by enforcing the use of Afrikaans inside our classroom was an issue about colonizing our minds. So we didn't need BC to tell us that. So they were not there. So what I can say is that, you know, it's not about point scoring. As I said, Hector Peterson symbolizes what happens, represents all of us, you know. So Phefeni Junior Secondary School, it's not about point scoring that, no, Morris was not there, we're not using Afrikaans, no, Naledi Hyde, we're not using Afrikaans. We're just a symbolic representation of everybody else who contributed in a united front, whether they were using English or Afrikaans. as a medium of struggle, but they contributed in our fight, you know, because at the end of it all, after losing so many fellow students, the apartheid regime, the government, withdrew the policy of using Afrikaans as a medium of instruction.
It was all worthwhile.
Yes, as I said, we won the battle, but not the war. No, the war was won in 1994.
But as you sit here now, for the first time since 1976, in the classrooms where it all started, do you feel pride?
As I said, I feel pride in the sense that it only makes sense now to me now at present that actually that was one, I'm saying not the, I'm saying that was one of the most important turning points in terms of the national struggle for liberation in South Africa. What we did contributed to that. If that didn't happen, our liberation was going to be delayed. It was definitely not going to be in 1994. Remember, when the students went into exile, the liberation movement, both the ANC and the PAC, had, gone down, you know. So when they went there, they replenished, the ailing liberation movement. If they didn't go there and join the liberation movement, as I said, our struggle would have been delayed. So they went to exile and really played a very, very, very constructive role that led to our liberation. That is why I included one of the interviews of one of the students who went to exile, explaining himself how he ended up in the military camps in Angola after the Soweto uprisings. So in a sense, that's our contribution. It's not only about us, it's about South Africans, including white South Africans, Indian, so-called colored, everybody. But as I said, we just a symbolic representation. We don't claim that, therefore, we are owed, something. That's why I took it personally that, the struggle doesn't owe me a penny, doesn't owe me anything. South Africa doesn't owe me anything. All I need to do, because that's what I needed to do then, was to get myself educated. And I think I'm one of the few who, through the pursuit of education, ended up where I am today. Because, as I said, some are 6 foot underground. They couldn't make it. But whatever I've achieved as an academic, I'm paying homage to them. I didn't want to disappoint them. And now I went to University of Natal and the University of the Witwatersrand. Those are they belong to the top universities in South Africa. But then I never thought that. Remember then, I was supposed to go to the so-called bush universities, University of Zululand or Teflop or Fort Hare, because they were meant for people like me. But I ended up going to best universities in South Africa. Probably in the US, you could say the so-called Ivy Leagues, But for me, even when I was there, I said to myself, I've got to make up. I've lost so much time in terms of my education. So I don't have time to play. So the struggle still continues. And I'm doing it for all those who fell down during the uprising.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure sitting in this classroom talking to you about this incredible day. Yes. Sifiso, I think you've done a marvelous job in the Soweto uprisings, and there's more to come, and we'll talk to you about what came next.
Actually now, in about a month's time, at the end of July, there's another publication. It's where I work is an outfit called the South African Democracy Education Trust, which really involves itself in terms of recording our history, the history that is not told, the neglected history. So our volume 7 is dedicated to the 40th anniversary of the uprisings, which was last year. So the book will be out at the end of July. It's published by UNISA Press. Actually, that's what I do. That's my everyday work at UNISA, where I am a professor of history. I'm responsible for this project, which is about recording our past. So we continue with this narrative. And I think it's also one of the best books in terms of our understanding of the uprisings, because I took it upon myself that really we have to contribute in terms of understanding the uprising in terms of academic writings and publications, because most of the publications were not necessarily academic, which is welcome. They don't have to be, but I just gave myself that task that I'll be one of the few ones. Probably the last chapter here might be too academic, which is about the intergeneration memories of...
That's fine. What we got is fabulous storytelling. We'll have to leave it there, Sifiso. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I have appreciated the chat.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.